I believe that there will ultimately be a clash between the oppressed and those who do the oppressing. I believe that there will be a clash between those who want freedom, justice, and equality for everyone and those who want to continue the system of exploitation. I believe that there will be that kind of clash, but I do not think it will be based on the color of the skin.
In 4 years, swings in honor past Hungary's strongman Admiral Horthy. The young men of the new German Reich welded into a mighty war machine.
I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation.
For thousands of years, people have defined justice in a number of ways to justify a number of causes. But what really is just, and can it be defined? Justice and morality have been linked together as far as the first written text found. Hammurabi was the ancient Babylonians' sixth king, and at the top of this pillar contains Shamash, their sun god and god of justice. Written in 1755 BC, the Code of Hammurabi stands over 2 meters tall and contains what is considered the first organized legal text, outlining laws and justice of the empire. The Code of Hammurabi has directly influenced policies and religions like the Mosaic Law. The quote, lex talionis, or an eye for an eye, is the running theme throughout the code, but the code contains laws expanding beyond criminal law, family law, property law, and commercial law. King Hammurabi had an aggressive foreign policy, but he was also very concerned with the welfare of his many subjects and was interested in law and justice. As the king, Hammurabi frequently considered himself his people's shepherd, selected by God Enlil to carry out these laws, and was convinced that he became king to prevent the strong from oppressing the weak. Over time, this idea of justice held in an ideal sense, but the reality seemed to show a different perspective. Almost 1,300 years later, the definition of justice is still undefined, and in Book 1 of Plato's Republic, we're familiarized with the same questions of justice and morality. What is justice? Is it right to exploit the weak? Each type of government enacts laws that are in its own interests. A democracy, democratic laws, a tyranny, tyrannical ones, and so on. And in enacting these laws, they make it plain what is right for their subjects is what is in the interests of themselves, the rulers. And if anyone deviates from this, he is punished as a lawbreaker and wrongdoer. That is what I mean to say when I say that right is the same thing in all states, namely the interest of the established government. And government is the strongest element in each state. And so if we argue correctly, we see that right is always the same, the interest of the stronger party. The reality Thrasymachus wants to portray to Socrates is that the stronger exploit the weaker for their own interest, money, power, fear, etc. Even if we don't want to agree with Thrasymachus, we can see his position is fortified in many more tangible ways. The strongest military writes the history books and dictates peace. The business creating the most jobs begets the most favorable contracts. The accountant that best understands the tax code pays the least in taxes, for them and for their client. But is that just? Is that right? Socrates says otherwise. Socrates argues that what a man makes through his work means nothing if he isn't doing his job in the first place. You started by defining what a true doctor is, yet when you came to the true shepherd, you abandoned your former precision. And now suppose that the shepherd's business is to fatten his flock, not with a view to its own good, but in hope either of a good meal or of making a sale, as if he were a businessman, not a shepherd. Yet the shepherd's skill is devoted solely to the welfare of the flock of which he is in charge, and so as long as it succeeds in discharging its function, its own welfare is adequately provided for. Book 1 of the Republic ends without a definition of justice, and if justice is the interest of the stronger or the weaker. But I have a question for you. What does the USA, Sadhguru, and Facebook all have in common? Regardless if you're a world power, spearheading a global movement, or a trillion-dollar business, you have extreme influence over those who follow you. 99.9% of the world cannot fathom this level of influence over politics, economics, everyday life, and so much more. There is a power somewhere, so organized, so subtle, so watchful, so interlocked, so complete, so pervasive, that they had better not speak above their breath when they speak in condemnation of it. Can we ever justify exploitation of the weak? Can we justify a country exploiting its laws and interest rates if the end goal is to have a safe and stable economy? Can we justify a person exploiting their subjects' beliefs if the end goal is to live a better life? Can we justify a company exploiting their users' personal information if the end goal is to have higher quality products for them? Maybe we know what's best in the end. Should we take it upon ourselves to define what is justice? How about morality and whether or not it's right to exploit another person if we can justify our means? Any man who tries to be good all the time is bound to come to ruin among the great number who are not good. Hence, a prince who wants to keep his authority must learn how not to be good and use that knowledge or refrain from using it as necessity requires. How can we ground our morality in anything if we don't understand the nature of our humanity? If we know there will always be characters that will deceive and those that are willing to be deceived, shouldn't we familiarize ourselves with the tools of deception in order to prevent ourselves from being deceived? What is fair game if we're all aware of the rules? The relationship between justice and exploitation might never be clearly defined. Therefore, everything can be considered fair game. Some of us side with Thrasymachus and have accepted and embraced this as truth. Some of us side with Socrates and are still on the search for defining what absolute justice is and clarifying its relationship to morality and exploitation. These are thoughts and questions that I haven't come to an understanding of just yet, but I hope to dig deeper into the videos to come.